G'day everyone, Dermot Kelly here, and I'm talking to William O'Leary once again. And I'd like to welcome all the new subscribers that have popped up in the last week or so. And I'd like to say thank you to all our subscribers that are listening. And I hope you're getting a lot of information or new information and doing something about it. And for those of you that are just touching base for the first time, there's plenty of videos to watch, but I'm sure your spirit guides will guide you to wherever you need to go to get the information you need. But may I suggest you start with the first three. So without further ado, William, how have you been?
I've been actually quite good. I've been very good.
Good to hear.
Living from day to day, happy as can be. So yeah, all's good, Dermot.
I've been busy as a bee.
I thought the last video is going down well, but there was a lot of information in that one. But this one's going to knock their socks off.
Not if they're not wearing them.
Well, hang on to whatever it is they are wearing. They're about to be sitting down. Sitting, back grammar, sitting down. So yeah, today I'm going to put people's beliefs to the test.
Just before you start, William, I just want to say this to the people out there. Once again, I had a list of what we were thinking about talking about, but as always, William springs this surprise on me and says, we got something else to talk about.
I do notice that you haven't even asked me. What's it about?
I'm not going to bother asking. I'll just go with the flow. But what I will say also is that there's a massive delay here on my computer, and I'm of the firm belief that I'm getting a lot of distractions or a lot of interruptions, and those of you in Australia would know that the NBN network is basically 10 times slower and more useless than what we had before. And I affectionately call it no bloody network. So, you know, that's why we got delays and whatever you. But the thing is, at least you can hear me and at least you can see me. So take it away, William.
Yeah, and we'll do the same as we did the last time, that if you freeze up, I'll keep nattering on that anyway.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There won't be a whole lot of change there. Because I am going to do a lot of nattering on this one, because this one is going to change a lot of people's beliefs and what they think they know about things. It's going to change the very core of people. So here's where we are.
You say that, but they may not, because that's their free will.
Oh, don't go into that just now. I'll be coming to that.
Hey,
no,
okay.
See, free will is no joke.
You
got to be careful with the free will. Now, you know, there are times that in your life when, especially for me, when books that are meant to show up will show up.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So my first book has showed up, and I know I did the videos way back when, and that was the Conversations with God with Neil Donald Walsh. And I was in Johannesburg Airport in Jan Smuts, and I needed something to read for the flight. I went into the bookshop and I picked these two books up. I said, which one will I take? Which one will I take? And that was the one I chose. Conversations with God. And by the time the plane landed, I had the book finished.
Wow.
That's how, when I know a book is right, I just cannot put it down. Okay, just moving on from that, the next book then that I knew was for me was A Course in Miracles. All right, and that was followed by the Law of One. Okay, so I knew these three books meant something to me. And then lately, bringing us right up to date, I think it was on the last video I spoke about, or maybe the one before, the Transylvania sunrise.
Yeah, last one.
Wasn't the last one, was it?
Actually, you brought it up on both. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when I got hold of that book and I read it, I said, "Oh, hang on a minute. This is another one of these books." Now, as it turned out, there were 7 of these books. And now I've read all of them. Okay.
Wow.
So, and the last one, I mean, the last one, I said, yeah, the last one brought everything together for me. It brought all the dreams that I've had over the years that I could never figure out. Although they kept repeating and repeating, and I said, listen, folks, I can't get this bloody message you're trying to send to me with these dreams, because they were all of the same ilk. But I could never quite figure out what the heck is going on here. I can't make these dreams out, all of them. And but lo and behold, book 7, and I knew as I was reading it, I was getting all of these flashbacks on my dreams, and I'm saying this book is very, very true. That there's something coming out of these books, and it's triggering me. And it's having me recall all of my dreams that I was looking for answers for.
Okay.
So that's just to put people in the picture of where I'm coming from and how these 7 books have shown up. And I mean, when did I do that Transylvania sunrise? I think we do one before it. And since that one and this one, I've read 7 of the books. The set. I just could not put these books down because they meant so much. The information coming out of them was so in your face. I mean, I'm looking at things with a completely new perspective now of what was really going on. So the 7 books were written by a guy called Radu Cinema. He's Romanian. And it turns out that he is now the head of a civil of this Romanian secret service, of a special branch of it. But he's a white hat. He is very, very full in the knowledge and of the esoteric. He's well in there. He's highly spiritual. He's very, very, very spiritual. So he was looking at some, what they call 3D hieroglyphics, not hieroglyphics, but 3D, what's it called? Hologram. Thank you, sir. Thank you. 3D holograms. And what they were in effect were part of the Akashic records. He was given access to the Akashic records. Okay. Now, and they were just reminding me that everything, every thought, every action, everything we do is all recorded. Everything is recorded in the Akashic. That's everyone. So somebody must be recording it somewhere. So who's doing the recording? Because they are there, and these are quite personal recordings of your thoughts, and not alone that, how they're interacting with everybody else. So who's doing all the recordings? Is there some guy going around with what do they call it, candy camera? Must be, but we don't know. But I have a feeling I do know how it's being done and where it is being done. And it ain't been done from anywhere close by. So just to do a small recap, in the last video, I showed you how the different bodies that are around everyone. And we start off with the
Yeah.
physical, and then we go into the what we call the causal bodies, which is the etheric, the emotional, and the mental bodies. I told you as we have the physical, and then we got the etheric. Outside that, we got the emotional. But further out you go, the lighter the bodies become. Okay, the closer the source you're going. As you evolve into these different aspects of yourself, and you leave the other body behind, then the closer you move to source. And I also say that as without, so within. As these bodies go out from you, they also go into you. So they go right into the center, and in the center is a star, all lead back into a star. The ones that move out also go to the star in the center of the universe. And there is a black hole in the universe. That's where, and the scientists know this. I think everybody knows it by now, that there is a black hole. But here's what they don't know. In the center of that black hole is a star. Also a star. That's the creator star of this universe. Okay, so likewise, you're a star in here. There's a star in the center of the earth. In other words, it's a black hole. In the center of that black hole is a star. Right in your center here is a tiny, tiny black hole, but in that little black hole, there's a star. Of the star, you're the star. If you remember going back a couple of videos back, I did the star meditation for you, where I held my hands out and I took the form of the star, and I told you how to do the sun meditation. And I described to you that you're a star.
Yeah.
Told you were a star. I was going way back when. Right from the very go, I told you were a star. Now what has really come up now is that all corresponds what's coming out of these books, that indeed you are a star. Everyone's a star. You're a spark of the divine creation. Everybody. That's what they are trying to hide from you, of who you are. You are that spark. And they're trying to keep that knowledge from everybody. So, right, getting back to the books, he was looking at this hologram, and he asked to be taken right back to the very beginning of where humanity came from. Taken back. There he was, and he was looking at the original earth and how it was formed. And he was also able to see how humanity was formed and where the first human came from. So, to get to the chase, roughly 400,000 years ago, there was a group of beings, very highly intelligent. They were Syrians, okay? And before it was over 400,000 years ago, they knew this planet was there. And they looked on this planet as their soul planet. We're talking about Syrians now, right? So the Syrians, they like to terraform planets and bring planets into being. So they decided that they'd like to terraform this planet. It didn't have a name, it didn't have anything at this stage. All they saw was just a dust cloud. But when it was like a mild sandstorm that was continuously around this planet. The planet had very, very little vegetation because of this dust that was continuously around the planet. and it was filtering out the sunlight. So not alone was it just around the planet, but it was in the cosmos around the planet as well. So the leader of the scientific group, whose name was Orma, O-R-M-A, was a female. She was at the head of the scientific group. They said, okay, we need, I mean, they did come down on the planet. The planet had the same vibration or a suitable vibration to their vibration, but the air was not. So they said, we need to do something about the air. So they had meeting after meeting, and what they came up with, if we could somehow vacuum the dust, just as you know, so collect the dust up like a big vacuum cleaner. And they said, okay, but how are we going to do that? So they said, okay, what about if we pull a satellite from the likes of Jupiter or Saturn and pull one of their satellites over and use that to attract the dust? And they said, hang on, no, that might interfere with those two planets. So they said, we can't take any of those satellites. So then one of the scientists had a brilliant idea. Why don't we use one of our own? One of their own ships. Now, the ship that they were on was about the size of the moon. It was a huge, big sphere. So they said, well, why can't we use something that's that big? And said, well, what can we use? And then someone said, well, we already have something that's ready-made. We have a ship of our own that is no longer in use. It was roughly the size of the moon, and that is the moon. That is what became the moon. They pulled that ship in and stripped everything out, of course, and put it into orbit around the Earth, and just left it there to slowly gather up the dust. Now, this didn't happen overnight. This took thousands of years to happen. And eventually it started to gather up all the dust over thousands upon thousands of years. That is our moon today. It's the next Syrian ship. Now, what that came up is in Apollo 12, when they were lifting off from the surface of the moon, they fired the booster back into the moon, and they also attached an explosive to it. So the booster hit the moon, created an explosion, and they had set detectors on the surface to detect the explosion, see what happens. And when the booster exploded on the moon, they said the moon rang like a bell for an hour. So they knew the moon was hollow. But this moon is hollow. It is. The moon is hollow, and it is an ex-Syrian ship. That was, at the time, was nearly over 2,000 years old. So it had stopped its function by then. So they do know that the moon is hollow. But they had to put it in a certain orbit to where it is now, and have it revolve with the one side facing at all times. This is to do with the vibrations that are on the Earth. Everything is affected. They look at everything via stars. They work with stars. Are you with me? So they know where every single star is in the constellation. They know every connection to every star, and every star is connected to each other, and they are aware of that. So they use that to bring in energy, star energy. So that is where the moon came from. Now, as time went on, there was a war in space, somewhere in another galaxy far, far away, right? And this huge ship, gigantic ship, Syrian, was damaged, right? So the ship was detached to have repairs done, was sent away out of the battle zone, away out of the universe, and so they knew this planet was here. So they sent the ship there because they knew here they had gold and silver, which the ship required. they use gold and silver to make their ships. Okay, so this big ship, nearly the size of the moon, came in, and well, it didn't come right down, it stayed in orbit, and sent the shuttle ships down to set up mining to take the gold out. Right? He said, we need to go. But when they were on, now the moon itself had done the trick at this stage. All the dust was gone. Okay? And this is thousands of years later. So we were able to land on the moon, and they set up mining operations. Now, it's not like going over to pick and shovel. They didn't do that. They had special apparatus that would sink into the moon, and they were able to extract it out in liquid form. There was no mines or anything like that. So as they came down and they were setting up these bases, the commander of the ship noticed that there was a group of beings, primates, not the primates that we know of as what we call the monkeys, but these were much taller, had some features similar to the monkeys, but not quite. They were much taller, nearly the same size as the Orions themselves, which were 2.5 meters tall. Okay. So the commander of this transport ship, it was a big one that come down from the mothership onto the earth, and were unloading the equipment, setting it up, and he noticed this bunch of creatures hiding in the bush, watching them. So he became he became curious about them. So he was walking away, and one of the creatures came out of the bush because they were watching all the activity that was going on. They couldn't in their senses figure out what was going on. So one of them got brave, came out, and started to approach commander of the ship. And then he would stop again and run back into the bushes. And then he come back out again. So the commander stopped what he was doing, and he slowly made his way over to the creature, or the being, you know, and he eventually was able to make a contact with it. And as he was watching, as he was making contact with this being, he got the gem of an idea. He was saying, I wonder, could we use these beings to help us to do what we're doing? He said, they don't know anything, but if we were able to utilize them, not alone are we helping themselves, but we'll be helping them to advance through their DNA structure. Now, the Syrians are very, very interested in DNA. Okay, so he began to get this idea. He said, I wonder. So he went back to the ship, and he called a meeting, and they said, and he put the idea to him, what about if we were able to utilize these beings to help? At the same time, they're helping us, but they're also helping themselves. They're not slaves now, by the way. There was never any intention of making slaves of these, right? So he said, okay. He informed the mothership what he was of their idea, and the mothership said, yeah, go ahead with it and see how you go. So he set up a bit of a command outside, a big sphere. He had a big sphere set up outside in the ground. And through this, he was able to affect the consciousness of the beings. So how was he able to do that? Well, it turns out his DNA was almost compatible with the beings, but only him, because he was born on the mothership. He was born, he was raised, he went to school, he was educated, and joined the military, and progressed up through the ranks to where he was now a commander of a huge transport ship. So they take so his DNA was not associated with any particular planet. His DNA was associated with stars. Okay, so what I want to show you now, if I can get her up, I said this is leading someplace, right? Now, so where are you gone, sunshine? There we go again. No, I don't need you there. So anyway, his name, and if you want to call him the father of humanity, was Tenenku, T-E-N-E-K-A-U. His gene is still in every individual on the planet. Can you see that?
No.
You see that?
Yes, I can see that now. Yes.
That's the Orion constellation, right? So if you notice the shape, if you notice the shape of the belt, this is the Orion's belt here. Okay, and if you notice, take note of this part. So his name was T-E-N Tenaku, and his signia was this. His personal name, his signia, was called after the stars. He used to bring that shape combined with this, whatever's going on here. And that was attached to here, to the middle part of that, forming a T, okay? So we go back to now, as time went on, Tenaku, his DNA was taken into formed the DNA for the creatures, for the beings that they were not human yet. But can you see that?
Got the second one? No, not yet.
Hang on. Did you share screen? Can you see that?
Okay, it's just come up.
Okay, now you see what over on the left-hand side there, you see the T.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got this symbol denoting the stars, denoting the star. Now, if you look above it, you see EI. So you got T, E, and then on the right, you got this symbol. You got the 11, what looks like an 11. Okay?
Yep.
That's all. That is a continuation of the E, but it looks like an N. But that is the, remember what you're looking at, the Syrian writing. And it's not 3D. Syrian writing is never 3D because they work in the astral. These are symbols to them. And that's how they configure things. That's how they say things, through symbols. They don't just put letters down. All their words are symbols, and all those symbols have meaning, but they're all connected to stars somewhere. So if you look, you get the T, and you got the E, and you got the N, the first three letters of his name. But the EI and the EN will always go with it. So you got T, which is his name of that. So if you look, this formed into the DNA of the beings that, the primates that were there at the time. And it was lodged into their DNA, your DNA. No. So to make a long story short, you got the T and you got the EI and you got the EN. Now they were aware that at the time when the ship came in for repairs, they knew this planet was there. There was no interference with the planet. It had progressively became habitable. The vegetation was mainly cacti and something like an aloe vera plants, but there was no grass, there was nothing there. So what they decided to do is, well, yeah, once he was able to make contact and saw that he was going to go ahead with the experiment, he sent a big report back up to the mothership, who in turn sent it to the main headquarters on Sirius and to Sirius A. Tanaku was from a Syrian offshoot. In other words, he was not from Sirius A, but close to Orion's belt. From Orion, okay, I say it with me. The Syrians went there, had migrated to there, but their headquarters are still in Sirius A. So as soon as the headquarters, they call them the wise beings, received the report, they eventually made a connection that this was programmed eons before. So all this would happen. The planet was put there, beings eventually developed there, but they were not mentally developed. Their DNA had not developed. They were just raw and audible, they were just put there. But this was decided eons before. And, they were all placed there. And who decided this? This was the will of the Creator. Always remember that the Syrians are highly spiritual beings. They're highly spiritual. And they knew that this was the Creator's own idea of creating the superior being. Right? He wanted to have the superior being created. And he put the knowledge there via the celestial beings, who in turn informed beings of high spirituality to do the work. So the celestial beings were aware that this was going to happen at the will of the Father.
Yeah.
Okay. All of it, so they were carrying out his divine will in doing all of this work. It's his idea to create you. So if we forget everything else on this video, remember that. Whose thought you were, whose idea it was that you be created. Remember, he comes from the star itself. The Syrians, they work with the stars. They measure everything via the stars. They don't get out a tape measure to measure. They use the stars as measurement. It's far more accurate. So you are the Father Creator's idea. It was his will that you be created. So the celestial beings put the planet there in a rough form, put some beings there, knowing eventually what will be the outcome, but that's all they did. They just put them there, left it up to the Syrians then to make whatever choices they wanted to make as to how they progress, how they would make progress. So when the wise council, Syrian council, got this report, they recognized it immediately and gave the go-ahead. But here, the ship, the mothership, who was a military ship initially, but it's huge, it's the size of the moon, their mission was transformed immediately. They were no longer on military duties. Their whole purpose now was the creation of the perfect or superior being. That was now their complete and sole mission, is to bring this being into creation. So we get as time moved on, and they started working with the consciousness of the primates on the planet, because they were high vibrational themselves, the beings that were in close contact to the bases that were set up, they started to also get the downloads, kind of, or the frequency from these people. They will feel it. Plus the fact that they were also able to implant the change in DNA, not overnight again, but all this took time. So you've got the E. So what they decided was, we got all these beings, but now we need to make two beings, two different types. One type of being will go down the spiritual path, right? They would have this special part of the gene encoded that would make this part of the primate go down the spiritual path, and they would be helped in that regard. The second set would not be interfered with. They would be allowed to develop naturally without the interference, or would be helped, but not as much. They would be helped spiritually, but not as much as the other beings. So the spiritual beings were given the class of L or I. They were given the L. Now, your name is Kelly. Okay. Here's a jump for you, right? And it starts with the K, the letter K. But here's something you didn't know. The letter K is actually, the letter K is actually Syrian. But it's not, it's actually 3 symbols, a minimum of 3 symbols. You got the I, then you got the K coming down. But the I is a separate symbol. And what it means to a Syrian looking at it means from above to below, or from heaven to the planet, up and down. So above to below. That's what that symbol indicates. This, and then you got this. Now, you got this part. If you take that and put it like that, it's an L. It can form an L, but they're actually two. That L is actually 2 different symbols, but for convenience, it forms an L. So you've got I and you've got the L. Okay. So they took the K and gave it that designation to the beings that would not be interfered with. I give the indicator L to the ones that had the spiritual. So you got a K and you got the L. You got the E.
Also got the E.
You got the E. You got the N, and you got the K. See where this is going, yeah? And then you got over here, you got the E, and you got the N, and you got the K. Yeah, does that sound familiar?
And then just to finish off the surname, I've got Y.
So you got I, you got I, you got I, but there was no deciding to cut one off to spite the other one. Both of them were to run. So one was called ENI or ENL, and the other one was called ENK. And that is the way things were allowed to progress. So you see where this name Enki and Enlil comes from, right? This is where things start to get confused for people.
It's starting to confuse me, I think, because
so you got Enlil, which is part of the alleged Anunnaki side of it, and you got Enki. You got Anu, you got the AN, and you got the U, which is part of Tenaku's name. His DNA is the root, in the very, very root of your DNA. You're Syrian.
Me?
Yeah, everyone has that Syrian connection. But here's the thing.
Oh, you mean everybody, not just me?
No, I mean every single human being has the root of the DNA is Syrian up to a point. The Syrians also had the help of the main help of 2 other races. One with the Pleiadian and the second one was the Arcturian. Okay,
Aha.
I knew that would catch you. They played a big part. The Arcturians were known as, if you want to call it, but there was the medical people or the doctors or the advisors for all the races at the time out there. They were
They were also
highly spiritual, right?
very wise
yeah,
as well.
very. That's their wisdom. So they were
Yeah.
able to advise the Syrians, yeah, that would, what they want to do would be acceptable. They can go ahead, like they would advise, yeah, to move in that line. They don't see any laws being broken if you want to go down this route. The Palladian side of it is because the beings were still a bit on the rough side looking. They needed some finesse and some luster, some glow, something to change to make them feel better and look better. So this is where the Palladians came in, and they gave their gene, because the Palladians, they look good and their energy is first class. They give off a certain shine, they give off a certain light. So they give that also into the DNA. So these three beings played a huge part in the development of human DNA.
Mm-hmm.
But other races also came in at a later stage because they wanted to get involved. There was about 20 others wanted to get involved, which they did with the human DNA. So when all of the DNA was gathered together and they started to put them into the primates. This wasn't done surgically, by the way. This was all done through their technology. It was all technology. They were able to implant all of this DNA into the primates via the mothership. The mothership.
That begs a question, though.
Oh.
If they were able to do that, is that's interfering, because that's not the free will of the person on the planet, is it?
No, hang on. The DNA of the primates was very, very low. So the Syrians at the time said, look, we need help. But so do they. If we can get them to help us, we're also helping them to bring on their DNA. We will help them to make progress. Remember, this is the creators, the creators behind all of this. And so the celestial beings who knew all this was going to come up. They knew all this was going to happen. This was all programmed eons before the Syrians ever showed up. This was done deliberately via the creator. It was his divine will that all this happened. So the mothership had a name, right? And he was able to see the name. The Radu Cinema was able to, when he focused on the mothership, he was able to see Nibiru. Ring any bells?
Say that again.
Nibiru.
Oh, that thing. Yeah. Okay.
What you come up with?
Nibiru.
Yeah. Nibiru. That's the mothership.
Yeah. And so why are they, meaning whoever they are, saying that Nibiru is going to collide with the Earth and destroy the planet? I mean, that's just fear-based nonsense.
There you go.
In my eyes. But what you're saying is Nibiru is actually the mothership coming back.
Yes, the mothership is in position all the time, but the mothership was positioning itself out in space, in cosmos, picking up the end, they would align with all the different stars that were corresponding to the DNA that was required. They would act as the focus, collect the energy from the different stars, bring it into there, bring it down into the ship, and then focus on the beings that required it. So they were taking star energy to put into you via the mothership.
Okay.
The star keeps popping up. They use star energy.
This is where my programming and humanity's programming kicks in.
Yeah.
Because Nibiru is the thing that's going to destroy us.
Is it?
But, well, that's what they say. But I don't believe any of that, okay? But the point I'm getting to is when you were talking about this superior being, that I don't know if it's the programming that we've had over the years, but the minute I hear superior being, isn't that what the Nazis were trying to do?
Yeah, but they couldn't understand what the human, what's at the very basis of the human. I mean, you are divine creation.
And the Nazis, not the Germans.
Yeah, the Nazis.
There's nothing wrong with the Germans, but the Nazis are the ones that are the bad guys.
Yeah. So he did ask the question, why were the reptilians allowed to do all the damage that they were doing? Okay. So he did ask the question.
Next question, but yeah, carry on.
Why were they allowed to interfere with humanity and do what they were doing? And what they were told was because that was part of the DNA that was required for the humanity. Humanity in itself was not strong enough, was not robust enough, and it required that robustness that the reptilians had. So that was allowed to come in other words, to toughen up the human DNA to make us more robust, more resilient. Because if anything, the reptilians are very resilient, but apparently humanity needed this part of their DNA. But here's the thing: human DNA is running out. Its period is running out. Right? DNA can only bring you so far, and then it needs to evolve. Right? And where does it evolve to? Into your other body, into your fourth dimension. In other words, your time is up for this DNA. So they were aware that the reptilians were in here doing a lot of damage, but they understood that it was required. Now, why is it required? Now, the astronomers and scientists have discovered that you got the Milky Way galaxy, you got the Andromedan galaxy. Now, the Andromedan galaxy is at an angle, is at more like this angle to the Milky Way galaxy, right? And that's the next galaxy out, is the Andromedan galaxy. And now they do know that in about a few billion years' time, these two are going to collide and form one galaxy. Now, unless the DNA of the beings in both galaxies are compatible, there's going to be chaos. And this is millions of years in advance now. But this is how far down the road celestials had planned, that we need to have the structure of the human DNA to be compatible with the structure of the beings in Andromeda, so that when they do collide, there'll just be a gradual meshing. As if the DNA is not compatible, there's going to be chaos, absolute chaos. So this is how far down the road they're planning. Not just for us over the next short period. They're planning long term. So when you move into your other bodies, you're moving in harmony. You're moving into your 4D then you move into your 50, and move into your 60, so that everything would be compatible when the two universes collide. That's how far out. This is why we needed the DNA of the reptilian to make us robust. But who is us? Now, I haven't got to Adam yet. Okay? I know you're saying, oh my God. I said, what about Adam and Eve and the flaming apple? So,
Yeah.
Now, Adam, it turns out, is androgynous. Right?
Can you explain what that means to people like me? Because that's a big word, you know.
I had it for breakfast. So look at the box.
Oh,
Now, that means he was neither male nor female. So what they took the best.
we're not going down that path, are we?
Hang on now. They took the best of the primates that were on the ground, the most advanced primates, and put all of the focus on the best of the primates that were picked. They took their DNA, took the majority of their own DNA, coupled with the Palladian and the Arcturian, and made it into this one superior being. Superior being being Adam, A-D-A-M. Now we believe that is the chemical composition of that was made up to create the DNA to put into Adam. So that the procedure was Adam is an anagram. So it was put into this creature called Adam, who was perfect in every way. Not a blemish, not a mark. He was perfect, and he was then cloned, and other copies made of him. So Adam was put. I'm saying he now, but he was either male nor female. He was put on the earth, and he walked with the other beings. He walked with the other primates, and got on beautifully with them. They immediately took to him, and he was able to influence their DNA alone just by his very presence. So they saw this as, they knew then that they had the perfect being. They gave him the gene, to have the sense of humor, the laughter, the lightheartedness, and all of that side of it. I don't want to go into look for all these words again, but that's basically the last bit. Now, when that piece was inserted, there was a big celebration among all the crews of all the ships, and especially on the Nibiru, that was the last piece of the puzzle. I'll bring it up and I'll show you the sign for it.
Until he met Eve.
No, they took the best. They took the best of the female of the primates and put that DNA into the female primates. So there was never something taken from Adam and given to Eve. Adam was neither male nor female. So Eve was created because she was and given to the best of the females in the primates and put into the female to make so that they could start reproducing. But here's the thing: the L, the ENL, and the ENK, the ENL were not progressing as quickly as the ENK. In other words, the ENK were becoming more prolific than the ENL, but both of them still weren't making huge strides in increasing the population. Remember, we're talking thousands of years here. So what they done was the mothership, Nibiru, repositioned the moon slightly in alignment with the stars, with particular stars that affected the females and the male to make them produce more. And here this is where you get the female and the lunar cycle. That's where the lunar cycle started. And how was that? Because they repositioned the moon slightly, and Nibiru was also positioned to take the the energy from particular stars, diverted it onto the moon, down to the earth to increase production. So in order to try and get balance back up again and bring the ANLs, the spiritual, because they were way behind and not producing as fast. In other words, to get them to produce more, start producing and multiplying, go forth to multiply. They weren't doing. They were so focused on being spiritual, they weren't bothering their. So they, by tweaking those things, they were able to get the ENL to produce more. But the L people were also interested in the females and the K people. You know, obviously they must have been very good looking since they had the Palladian part in them. So, but that was okay. That was allowed. But
they were quite prolific in India and China then, weren't they?
Now here's you mentioned India. Now, if you look at India, India is very much Palladian oriented.
Is it really?
Yeah, and then I was reading and said, really? India is very much Palladian influenced. Even their buildings, their what they call it, their temples and such, are the shape of Palladian ships. So that's news. So anyway, let me see what. Yeah, let me see what this one come up. No. You see that?
I can now.
Okay, so if you look down here, you see the T under the T, which is the Orion belt sign, and it comes down and goes off at the angle, and then you, for all lettering we have T under the EI, and then you got the N, but that link is put in by us, modern man, but the Syrians would have a dot there instead of that bar. But if we look at the one on the right, the hexagon, that was the last one to be introduced. That symbol into the DNA. That refined the emotions within the primates, within you. That was the last link. And that's where there was big celebration when that was the last link that went in.
Now, I just made an observation. If you have a look at the middle of the hexagon, you've got an X and a Y. That's
a good, actually, it is, yeah. But you can see if the hexagon can also be a cube, if you look at it right. But yeah, a cube, square. You know, if you look at it at a certain angle, you can see it.
So yes, you can.
Yeah. So this is where you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you take off the bottom right, it's a Y. But if you leave it in, it's an X. But yes, I can see the cube also.
So
interesting.
Remember, Syrians and from anywhere will recognize these symbols as Syrian, not as TEN, but these are star symbols.
Yeah.
All right. So you got the I and your N. You got Enki and Enlil, and what's the other one? Enki and Enlil and Anu, I think. But in Tanakh, there's a hue in Tanakh who's an N. And this is where I feel we're getting all this crap from. All this Anunnaki stuff. We're creative. The Nibiru is an Anunnaki, is a Syrian ship who developed us. Oh. They're not going to destroy their creation. They wouldn't be allowed. Plus, there's 22 other races involved with us.
Yeah.
So where does that leave all of the Anunnaki crowd? And all the stories, Anu and Enki wanted the kid, didn't want us, and there was war between Enlil and Enki and Enlil, two brothers and the father supposed to be.
Well, the way I look at it with this new information is basically, again, like I've always said, is if you look at the wheel of perception, it's the same sort of information, but looking from a different perspective. So, and throughout the eons, whoever is looking at something and giving a perspective, they tell a story, they form their own opinions, and it's like the Chinese whisper. It changes over time to the point where it becomes a ridiculous story. So, yeah. Okay, I just want to get
people. Sorry,
I just want to go back to right at the beginning when you were talking about the moon. That's not the first time I've heard of the moon actually being hollow and being brought here. But having known people that have actually been there, and or many people have been there, but I do know one person in particular.
So do I.
But the thing is, what I don't get is I'm told that there are many different races up there that are living below the ground. So there must be some sort of like I suppose, like the Earth, like a mantle or a crust around the hollow section of the moon. Because otherwise, how would they be able to live underground? You know,
when the first Apollo was the one that landed with Armstrong, and they brought samples back of the moon dust.
Yeah.
And they looked at that. Whoa, that's the same as the Earth. That's the same stuff as the Earth. Remember the moon?
But they didn't tell you that. They didn't tell you that, though, did they?
They did, yeah. That was what made known at the time. Hey, that's made from the same thing we are. You know, everything is the same. It is, because the dust, everything that's on the moon,
there you go, I learned something.
was the cosmic dust and the dust that was floating around in the Earth. Plus the what they call it, the belt, the debris field that's around, was it Jupiter, is it? The debris field, what is it? It was a planet that exploded, a huge planet exploded.
Yeah, the asteroid belt.
The asteroid belt, so yeah, the asteroid belt. That was, and I did say that way back when. So that was a planet called Marduk or Tiamat. It was a huge planet that exploded. So this affected Mars, and it affected all the other bodies around there. This thing is huge. It was 7 or 8 times the size of the Earth. Okay, so the scientists won't tell you that was a planet that exploded. Why it exploded is something different. Now, when that planet exploded, it affected the DNA here. It affected this planet, because every planet is connected energetically wise. There is no, every planet is not on its own, the same that every star is not on its own. Every star is connected to everything else. There's no such thing as a lone star that's away out on its own, but no connections. Every star has these cosmic, like the cosmic web, that the entanglement, it's out there, it's all connected.
Yeah, well, it would be, yeah.
This is why you are part of the cosmos. You are the cosmos. Everything that's out there is in you. So by having that discipline blow up, it affects the consciousness of other planets, including the consciousness down here. everything was affected. So
Yeah.
all that had to be compensated for. So where was I going with that? Yeah.
The asteroid belt.
When after that exploded, right? Getting back to the ENL and the NK, the ENL groups all kind of, as time moved on, kind of went with their own. They split off from the ENK group, but they were still mutually working with each other. Like there was no hostilities, nothing. But they settled in what is called Atlantis. ENL, they settled in Atlantis. The ENK and those that had intermingled with the ENL groups, in other words, had their consciousness raised by being associated with the ENL, all migrated to the Atlantis, right? When they knew that Atlantis was about to sink, and they became aware of it, and those that did became aware of it, despite them warnings, not because of the technology they were using, it was going to affect Atlantis, they decided to go underground. Some of them went north, but the bulk of them went underground, into the earth. They knew they could move into, they could go more from the physical to the etheric body without too much of a problem because of their spirituality. They decided to move into the earth.
And the ones in Atlantis were the ones that had the technology.
Yes.
And the artificial intelligence.
At the time, I don't know, with artificial intelligence, or maybe it was, but because the ENL groups were highly, highly spiritual, they decided to leave before the Atlantis sank and moved underground. These are the beings that are underground. They're living underground in the center of the earth, in the different levels and layers on the earth.
But so before you go any further, you've got the spiritual group that went underground, and you've got the technology people that were above ground. And when that sank, where did the rest of us go? What group were we part of?
What's mainly on the surface is ENK, mainly ENK. So
the technology,
the technology group, they moved, say, where the part that didn't sink, because by then the ENK had kind of spread around the planet a bit.
Yeah.
So they were in different parts. So they did not go underground. They weren't able to go underground because their vibrations wasn't high enough to go underground. You needed high vibrations to move into the earth, to go from the physical to the causal bodies. The ENL, and quite easy to do that. No problem for them because they're high spirituality. So I know I'm probably jumping into the flat earth here. I didn't.
Are you?
I didn't mean to do it, but I'm going to say this. You take the diameter of the moon would just fit inside the earth, just below the crust, just before the mantle. This diameter would just fit into the earth. Now, Venus would just fit inside the earth. The size of Venus would just fit inside the moon. And Mars would just fit inside Venus. These are the diameters that you're talking about, size-wise, inside the earth. That's how big it is inside. So this is where you get all the various beings living now, who are aware of what's happening on the surface and want to help. They don't want to see humanity dying off because they know the DNA needs changing, it needs to evolve, and they are extremely worried about the condition of the human being, just as I am and always was. They're worried because the human being is not progressing fast enough, DNA-wise, structural-wise, spiritual-wise. They say they are worried. They are all of the races on the ground are worried. And it is circular. It's not flat. It can't be flat.
Yeah.
With all these beings living in there.
Yeah.
How far down is it? 150 to 2,000 kilometers deep is when you go into the astral. Okay. After that depth, you go into the astral.
Yeah.
Right? If your vibration is not high enough, you cannot go from the physical into the astral. Even if you decide to go straight down, you can't do it.
I've got a question then.
What?
If someone's out there right now that has had contact with beings down there, right, and tell some very, very interesting information, but now is not in regular contact, but is doing something completely different on the surface, how is it possible, if he was that advanced spiritually, to actually meet these people? How is it that he's allowed himself to be mind controlled or whatever on the surface now? Because, so you know who I'm talking about, don't you? No?
There's three possibilities. There are three possibilities. I'm wondering which one you're talking about.
Well, we used to talk about him years ago before he became public.
Oh yeah, him. He I don't know, is he in contact with spiritual beings underground?
Oh yeah. Okay, he's doing comic books now.
Oh yeah. I was going to come on to him. You're talking about Corey Goode, right?
Correct.
Well, yeah. So the beings that are making contact, I come to it with Corey Goode, right? I've been following Corey Goode, so have you, for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And when I'm hearing about the beings that are making contact up here with the surface dwellers and allowing people to come down into the inner earth, once their consciousness their vibration is raised, and they're usually the female would make all these approaches, and the description of the females, I said, it's not unlike what Corey Goode was talking about when he makes contact with the beings that he calls the Ansha, and this female Ansha called Ari. I said,
Ari, yeah.
I said, I wonder, is there any similarity there? And I had the YouTube is open, right? And I looked at all the YouTubes, and there was Corey Goode. Oh, I said, what's that one? I said, it was a video he made 4 years ago. It was 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
So I said, I hadn't seen this one, not to my recollection. So I opened it up last night, and boy, was all the connections there. Everything he was speaking about is he corroborated everything of what he described and what was showing up in the So I'm sorry if this is with me.
Yeah, sorry, William.
You were frozen there, yeah. So I'm sorry
if the family just
go on.
Apologising for doing this, guys. My family just came home once, so I thought I'd better quickly say goodnight to them all. So anyway, away we go.
So I apologize for anybody if I appear to be jumping around the place, but there's so much more information that I want to get out that I'm kind of rushing things a bit. But I just wanted to nail this Anunnaki side of it from that perspective of the information that I have read, and also from my own personal information. I told you that I had lots and lots of dreams, and I could never figure out the ending. And this book, especially the last one, and it made all these things come together for me. And I now have endings, even to the dream where I went with the Syrians off somewhere else. There's more to that I may divulge at a later date, as I now know what really transpired when I went off and what the real reason for doing that was. But let me tell you that the Syrians are a beautiful people. There's nothing hideous about them. They just look like we do. The skin might be small bit different, but you know, they're beautiful people. Not in the least bit scary or intimidating. I wasn't intimidated. I enjoyed being in their company. So that's just an aside.
Okay, just before we go on, whatever else you want to talk about, I know that you know, William, but maybe the viewers don't, because I never really told my side of the story. But I'm primarily from my soul, I should say, is primarily from Arcturus, and I've been schooled in the Pleiades and Andromeda. And when I was in contact with a psychic in America who did a reading over a radio show for me many years ago, and one of the listeners actually sent this particular psychic that although and I talked about the Pleiades and Andromeda, they actually said that I'm actually from Sirius.
Oh,
So here we go. That in itself, when you mentioned about Sirius, I often wondered what
you broke up there, damn it. You broke up, enough freezing again and again and again.
Unfortunately, the internet is unstable. But I said, I often wondered what the connection between Sirius and me was, because although someone heard what I was saying, contacted somebody else who then told me that I'm primarily from Sirius, and I'm thinking, well, how's that possible if my soul is from Arcturus? So there's obviously all thereof, and this is kind of putting it together for us. Is that correct?
Whereas if you feel that's resonating with you, then it's right for you. So,
well, I knew that I've been connected with many star races. I've had many incarnations on different star planets, so not just here on Earth. So I'm here on this planet, I should say, a special mission, which is why I've had protection to a degree, but I've also had disruption on a massive scale, because they don't want me to tell people what's going on. And I'm just connecting people that are telling people what's going on. So there you go.
Yeah, the prime, just before I forget about it, the prime reason why the human being was created was to allow beings of high dimension, spiritual beings of very high dimensions, to come down and experience stuff.
Correct.
That is the core reason for the human. And in the beginning, as soon as they were able to organize the DNA correctly, the beings that were on the mothership, Nibiru, who are very high dimensions, were able to come down and come into the bodies. And the viewer was able to see that actually happening. He saw these beings coming down, like on a silver cord, coming down into the bodies.
Yeah, the etheric cord.
Yeah. So the silver
Much
cord is
like,
called.
much like the umbilical cord in the physical.
Yes. Yes. Remember when Radu was born, the author, when the doctor saw his what they call umbilical cord, it was 2 inches in diameter and he couldn't cut it. He had to get a normal saw and cut it. Oh, woman, merciful hour. But he knew straight away, he knew straight off that there was something unique about this baby. It was special. And this is Radu now, who is viewing all this and telling all the story. Remember, he was given the job of telling the story. It was his prime job, was to witness everything so he could write down the information so that he would give the information out. But our friends,
That's why they don't want.
Which is why the stonemasons, the Freemasons got involved, because they didn't want the information to come out. They stuck their finger in again, and they have been sticking.
Of course they did.
But it's coming back to the main point: why you were created, whose idea it was that you be created. It's the Creator, it's divine Creator. You are a part of the divine Creator. It was his request that you be made, that you be formed. And only his request can destroy you. And that ain't going to happen. So you can think on from that. But you do need to move on, because the DNA is becoming stale. DNA is starting to get stale. There is a limit to how much can be done with DNA. So this is why it needs to keep evolving all the time. So now it needs to evolve, move on.
Yeah.
But getting back to our friend Corey Goode, what he described when he went down, remember he had to go through a very, very special initiation process.
Yeah.
Now, I was looking for confirmation of everything that I had read. I said, I need confirmation. I said, where else am I going to get it? And I was thinking, the only guy now that I could think of would be Corey Goode and his contact. And I wondered, was there any correlation? And lo and behold, I saw this 2.5-hour video, which I hadn't seen before. And it was purely about his contact with that civilization.
Yeah.
And what he witnessed and what he saw and what he experienced down there. But he said that the beings were of 4th dimension. So 4D beings. Not 3D, they were 4D. And the further down into the planet you go, the further into the etheric you go, into the lighter body, the lighter substance. The closer you get the source of the earth, which is the star. But likewise, when you go out, the further out you go in your own bodies, the closer you are to getting the source, but where you will return to one day. But you've got to go through these bodies first. And we now know what the bodies are for. The chakras are completely, sorry about that. The chakra, 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time. Whoa, okay. That's pretty tricky. So now we know what the chakras are: energy vortexes. Like they're for our energy sources, energy generators. So yeah, having looked at that, he more or less said everything. This was 4 years old, remember? 4 years he was saying it. And I said, that verifies everything that I had just read. What he was saying verifies everything.
But my original question was,
Well,
it might verify everything that we're talking. Why?
Oh boy.
Now, what has?
Having a clue what
Did I
you said? You froze something awful.
Okay, I'll say it again. Oh,
sorry, John. Okay, we didn't get that.
I'll try for the 3rd time. It verified. Did you hear that? Okay.
Sorry, folks. Welcome to the modern world. And there's poor old Darren, but trying his best. Ooh, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Here we go. So will this work?
Okay. Did you hear that?
No, but it improved a little bit. Did you hear that?
Wow.
So keep going.
Although it verifies what Corey said 4 years ago, why is it that today he seems like he's digressed back into what could be construed as some mind control program?
Yes, and I am aware, and we did speak about that. But back then, he was more, I would think there's, if you look at him and look at him now, you can see a marked difference.
Yeah.
I can see that there's a difference in the Corey Goode that was there 4 years ago, the very, very high spiritual good, Corey Goode then, versus the guy that's there now, and I can see such differences. Now, he says he's actually still in contact with that fourth dimensional being. Maybe he is. Are you there? Can you hear me? So obviously,
yeah, I can hear you.
Oh yeah. So just 4 years ago, and I was looking at an old Corey Goode back then, a highly spiritual Corey Goode, relating to what he experienced, and he did say that they were a fourth dimensional. Now he didn't mention anything about being the other bodies and how you are if you go deeper into the earth. I don't think he knew about it. But they say that if you're in those bodies, if you're in that part of the earth, and if you look up very high, you can just barely make out the slight curvature inside. Just barely make out the curvature of the earth, of the area where they are, or the curvature of the inner earth.
Yeah.
So it's a sphere. And he's only talking about one group of beings that he met, and they were in America. Remember, you've still got the whole 360 degrees circumference, and all the beings that's in the other 360 degrees. So you're talking about many beings.
Correct.
Hundreds of different beings. But are they all good? I don't know. I think some of them, the reptilians, may eventually have got to some of them. I don't know that. I'm only just speculating that. I'm only just speculating. But the one thing that shone out very clear to me is that they are very, very worried about the situation of mankind right now. Very worried. All of them are very worried.
They're not the only ones.
Well, they can see,
you know,
they can see where we're going or where we're not going.
Yeah.
No, it's not looking pretty, because if they do want to come out and help mankind on the surface. They honestly do. They say, we want to come out, and we've been wanting to come out. Because mankind needs help.
So the question is, are they waiting for us to ask?
Yes.
But the problem is they're so distracted.
Exactly.
They don't know about them.
The same with the beings that are out there who are monitoring us. They're waiting to be asked. Everyone is waiting to be asked, but they're not being asked.
Which is why we need to share the information, folks.
Yeah.
Get it out there.
Yeah.
That's why it's important.
Yeah. This is why I'm going through all this scenario in order to get to the emphasis at the end of why it's important.
Story.
Sorry, Dermot, you're breaking up again. Oh. Can you restart? Oh boy. So folks, just I can talk over Dermot there for a minute. You need to start sharing. You froze something awful there that time, Dermot, so I continue talking. So you need to start sharing the information. You need to start lifting yourself up. You need to start raising your vibration. How are you going to do that? We all talk about you need to raise it, you need to raise your vibration, you need to get them up there. But how are you going to do it? Remember the God question?
Yeah.
And then I said, walk tall. Both of them are connected. And how do you walk tall? You can't walk tall if you're overweight. Your weight is pulling you down. You need to get your diets under control. You need to get everything under control. If you're overweight, you ain't going to make it. Full stop. If you're overweight, you can't get your vibrations up. It's all goes together. Your health, your spirituality, or your vibrations, and your connection to source. Realize who you are. If you're overweight, that's one of the links gone. And you need all three. A healthy body means a healthy mind. Once you get these two healthy, then you get your vibrations up, you get your spirituality back in order and get it up there. Then you can walk tall, knowing in who you are. Are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me, Dermot?
Well, up in that here, and my screen looks like it's moving, and yours, obviously, it's the other way around.
That's usually the case, isn't it? There you go again. So yeah, it hopefully it all comes out. Remember who created you and why you were created. Whose idea it was that you would become is the superior being. When you eventually, the purpose also is that once you get yourself together and get your house in order, we can all move out into the cosmos. We can go to the various planets. We can have our DNA put into these planets, into these beings. We can help throughout all of the universes in the multiverse. Some of the humans have already been taken out there to implant their DNA into the beings on the various planets. You will be in high demand. Also, once you move on, you will be, that will be part of your function, that you in turn will help other planets to make progress, just like we were helped on this one to make progress. You will do the very same as you move on in other places. But you can't do that if you're stuck here. You cannot do that if you're stuck here. And eventually fade away. No. So, yeah, I'll share the screen. If you look, can you see that, Dermot? Obviously not. Down here, you see the hexagon again. Okay, and how this was spliced into the DNA. Right, it was the last one to go in. That gave you your how you became an empath, how it gave you feelings, true feelings. Your laughter, your humor, your sense of fair play, all that comes, your humanity, in other words, comes from this insertion that was put in at the very end. When all of these others had been put in there, you got the EI, you got the EN, you got the T again. They all go together, the earth symbols, the number 2, which we call the letter N, spliced into the DNA at these various points on the DNA. Now, thought I'd just show you that one. Well, Dermot is frozen. Where's he gone? So folks, there you have it. Dermot seems to have disappeared. I don't know where he's gone. He's coming back. I've been harping on it from the word go, from the very first video, that you need to increase your vibrations. Get your health in order. You can't do it if your body is out of whack, your mind is out of whack, your connections are out of whack. You can't do it if you're not healthy. Period. Okay. Can you hear me down there? Yeah.
You would not, well, you probably would believe this, but I cannot start the video for whatever reason. But what happened while you were talking, the Zoom just cut off altogether.
Okay, so I'll continue talking.
It cut out completely. And so what happened is it came back, but for whatever reason, I can't. Oh, hang on. I've got the camera back, finally.
Oh.
So I think that's a sign to finish up, and then we'll go on to part 2 in a few days' time.
Yeah. So there will be a part 1 and part 2. Yeah. Yeah. I had to rush this one at time-wise.
Wow. That's some heavy interference.
Because of the interference and because of the information that I need to get out there. Yeah, about the flat earth. It's not flat. Oh yeah, about the flat earth. There was a question raised actually during the viewing that not during the viewing, but there was a question raised by Rad to with his superior. What about this flat earth? Okay. And he says it's complete BS. He says it's all deliberate. And he says, what do you mean by deliberate? He says, people don't really think the earth is flat. But those that do, he says, are doing it for a very good reason. Because subconsciously, they don't want to move on. He says, what's being deliberately being caused, he says, is a split. They're causing a rift between those who firmly believe it's round and those who are saying it's flat.
Yeah.
Causing a divide, deliberately so. If you believe in your flat earth, you ain't going nowhere. Because you're staying with that 3D vibration, the physical vibration. You're attracted to the vibration of the physical. You ain't moving on.
Yeah.
So stop, if you want to move, stop listening to the flat earthers and knowing that they are causing, they may not be aware of it individually, but they are causing a split in humanity. Create a divide, another divide, as if we don't have enough of divide, enough distractions. And that's all it is. But what will happen if you firmly believe that the earth is flat? You ain't going nowhere. You believe in the material. You believe in what's there now. Nothing else. That's it. You can forget your flat earth or you can stay with your flat earth. Your choice, you decide. Just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I mean, it doesn't even make logical sense, regardless of anything else.
Not in the bloody least.
I mean, everything else is
I wanted to stay away from it. I know we all of us spoke about it briefly, but I never really wanted to get into the argument. I always kept away. But now I have something to back it up of why it is that it's suddenly gaining a foothold.
Yeah. Well,
apart from logic, of course, but now I understand why. That it's causing a division, designed to cause a division.
Well, with the Arcturian wisdom, the Pleiadian beauty, the Syrian whatever, and the Andromedan whatever, you know.
Plus the other 20 races, by the way. And I will finish out on the 20 races on the next video. Now that I've been in a big rush, probably out forgetting a few little details, big details in there somewhere. But I will come back, and if I say, oh shit, I poo-pooed on that one. But so I'll rectify it hopefully on the next one. But I just needed to get this information out.
Yeah.
So we can debunk all this Anunnaki crap. It is crap because it affects me, because I knew it, because it fixed up a whole lot of dreams for me. It brought so many dreams to fruition, to understanding.
Well, I didn't get the dreams, William. I just knew intuitively. It's like, how do I know stuff that I don't know? And then I think my mindset has always been, I know it's bunkum. I don't need proof. I just know that it's not.
We might do, but
true.
But
unfortunately, the 3D human needs proof.
Yeah.
They need proof, but I don't. I don't need proof because I know.
Correct. This is why I had to search. I asked for clarification. I said, I need something to back this book up. And lo and behold, Goode, who I thought I saw everything, there was a 2.5-hour video where he dealt exclusively with his connection to the inner the beings in the inner earth. Completely about that. And I said, wow, there's the book all over again.
Well, we've come to the end of this one because I need to recalibrate this. I'm getting way too much interference here, William.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll shut it down. It's been going for an hour and a half now, thereabouts.
So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Hope you enjoy. And we'll see
or maybe not.
you very shortly with part 2.
Hopefully the reception will be far, far better. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.